Project and Associate Director at the Center on International Cooperation of New York University. During 2009-13, he was Senior Advisor to the Special Representative for Afghanistan and Pakistan of the U.S. Department of State. He also was an advisor to the UN in Afghanistan during the negotiation of the Barnett, the Constitution of 2004, and the Afghanistan Compact. Dr. Rubin, you have the floor.
You're just putting up a table that I'm not going to talk about for quite a while.
I must give credit to the three first presenters for having been really concise, which will allow the audience to ask questions later. Thank you.
Oh, so this is PowerPoint. Okay. Well, I don't mind putting it up there if you want to look at PowerPoint. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you to the Center for inviting me. Thank you to Professor Milani, specifically for all of you who helped organize it and fund it. The meeting has not been quite as nonpartisan and academic as I was led to believe. And therefore, I'm going to make just a few brief comments for which I was not prepared. When the representative of a major European power says at the Munich Security Conference, the time of relying on the United States is over, it does not mean that we have agreed to make a bigger effort together with our ally, the United States. He means, unfortunately, we have concluded that under President Trump, the United States is no longer a reliable ally. That is not a foreign policy success for the United States. Second, Syrian strike sending a clear message. Can you tell me what the clear message was? I don't know. No one knows. Is the message that if they do it again, we will strike again, and we're willing to escalate indefinitely? We don't know. No one knows what the message was, except that President Trump reserves the right to use military force when he sees something on television that upsets him. In the past week, according to Max Boot at the Foreign Council on Foreign Relations, who is a former security and policy advisor to Senator McCain, and not by any stretch of the imagination liberal. In the past week, Trump has changed his position on NATO, the Export-Import Bank, Syria, Russia, China, taxes, and Janet Yellen. In most of those cases, he has changed it in the right direction, so that's good. But unreliability and unpredictability in the President of the United States is extremely dangerous. And it creates a type of miscalculations on the part of foreign leaders out of which wars are made. Now, as far as the appointments are concerned, there has never been such a delay in staffing the State Department. There's no confirmed position below the Secretary. That means I work in the State Department. I have many friends there. The State Department is paralyzed. And personally, I suspect that this is not an accident. It is part of a plan for destroying American diplomacy, because he doesn't believe it. And his advisors, he flat and says that he wants to destroy parts of the American government. That I consider very, very dangerous, because suppose he does have a message from the Syrian strikes. How will he follow it up to get it implemented? He will need diplomats, and he does not have them there. Now, talking about U.S. policy on Afghanistan, I'm not going to say much about the Trump administration policy on Afghanistan because it's currently going through a policy review in which I believe the president is not involved, and it may very well come out with a relatively reasonable result because it is in the hands of people who know what they're talking about. And I just agree with the consensus that the firing of General Flynn because of his secret contacts with the Russian ambassador about which he lied Of course, having secret contacts with the Russian ambassador and other Russians is something very common around Mr. Trump and his entourage. His replacement by General McMaster was extremely positive. Like many people in this room, I've worked with General McMaster. I know him, I respect him, and I look forward to working with him if he's interested in doing that. Now, on Afghanistan, let me just go back here. I think that all of U.S. Afghanistan policy, and here this is not Trump versus Obama, which I worked and so on, it was frustrating for me when I was there too, has been caught in a kind of a time warp. Because we think that we are in Afghanistan, I think the common view is we are in Afghanistan fighting a war against the Taliban, who are protectors of Al-Qaeda, and we want to defeat them or destroy them. In fact, our policy isn't that. It's generally recognized by everyone. We cannot defeat the Taliban. We can eliminate them. And also, the fundamental of our policy, not just our policy, but policy of the Afghan government, of every country in the region, except possibly India, by that I mean Pakistan, Iran, Russia, and China, is that the Taliban should be brought into a political settlement, one way or another. And by the way, just to mention some interesting connection, when Professor Lynch was talking about Muslim Brotherhood in that period, during the period that the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt was participating in politics, the Taliban political office had a delegation that went to a European country. And in that European country, they expressed strong interest in learning about how the Muslim Brotherhood participated in electoral politics, and also in going perhaps to Indonesia and Malaysia to learn about how Islamic parties in those countries operated within a democratic system. Now, so I'm not going to argue for why a political settlement is necessary. If anyone wants to ask me about that, I'll be happy to talk about it. But I want to talk about two other things, which is one, we have had a U.S. military presence there now for over 15 years. No one, including the United States, expected the United States military presence in Afghanistan to last over 15 years. The people, the children of the people who fought there so their children did not have to fight there, have now sent their children to fight there. And there is no map of how to get out of it. In addition, we still are thinking of the conflict primarily as in a bilateral context. We and the Afghan government, as we can, support from others. The fact that we've had such a long military presence in the region has led to a reaction in the region because virtually every country in the region, sole exception being India and, of course, Afghanistan, views the U.S. long-term military presence in Afghanistan as a threat. Now, they all actually assisted the start of our military campaign. Iran and Russia were very actively assisted us, including, by the way, the Al-Quds unit of the Iran Revolutionary Guard Corps helped us on the ground in Afghanistan. But when it lasts this long, of course, they begin to wonder what is its real motivation, what might it do? And the fact, of course, we say we're fighting terrorism, but they know two things. One is that we built enough infrastructure so that in the view of Russia at any rate, we could surge 100,000 U.S. troops into Afghanistan in about 2 weeks or other regional contingencies. And I once actually brought someone from the Pentagon, civilian, to meet with Russians and Iranians in Norway to explain to them that we had absolutely no inhibition about wasting a lot of money. But they were not convinced. And of course, if we say it's only to fight terrorism, they of course remember that the U.S. overthrew Saddam Hussein partly on the grounds that he was supporting terrorism, that the U.S. accuses Iran of being the leading state sponsor of terrorism, and that the U.S. has publicly on many occasions expressed concern that the nuclear materials and weapons of Pakistan might fall into the hands of terrorists. So therefore, all those countries believe that under some circumstances, those troops in Afghanistan might be used against them. And that is why you have seen a shift in the region from bandwagoning international relations, that is, people coming in to support the U.S. against their continuity, to balancing. You may have seen that within the past couple of months, Russia It has also invited the United States. We, thus far, have not accepted to go to it, and is planning to invite the Taliban eventually once these countries reach consensus on how that might be done. Now, that's one thing. Second thing is, economically, the region has changed very dramatically. And this has implications not just for specifically economic issues, which I will come to in a minute, but just for how powerful the countries feel themselves to be and what their capabilities are. And that's what this table is about. It shows, the first one is the GDP in current US billions of dollars of those 6 countries plus the United States. And to forget the basic result, all we have to do is look at those 2 numbers over there, 4.1 and 1.2. In 2001, the US economy was over 4 times larger than all of those economies put together. In 2016, the US economy is barely larger than all of those economies put together. That is a massive change. And it means that their attitude toward the United States and its role in the region is going to change. And that is not because of anything Obama did. Obama did not cause the economy of China and India, the economies of China and India to grow, and the economies of Russia and Pakistan to grow. That is a part of what is happening in the world today, and we have to decide how we are going to adjust to it. Are we going to adjust to it by saying that those who are rising powers are threats to us and we have to contain them? Or are we going to do what actually Secretary Tillerson said recently, that after he talked to Xi Jinping, echoing his language, are we going to try to find a new form of great power relations? Now what I'm going to talk about is how we might do that with respect to Afghanistan. And part of the assumption of that is that the origin of the insurgency in Afghanistan is not primarily radical Islam. That's the reason for the counterinsurgency in Afghanistan. But Afghanistan was at war since 1978. And it's been at war, communists against the monarchy, then Mujahideen against communists, then Mujahideen from different ethnic groups against other Mujahideen, then the Taliban against the Mujahideen, and now the United States against the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. So the political structure of this conflict keeps changing. The only thing that doesn't change is the war. Okay? There's always a war. That means that the ideological differences among the parties are not the cause of the war. The cause of the war is that Afghanistan cannot, since it's been demarcated where it is now, it has not been able to economically support a state without foreign subsidies. And foreign subsidies can build a state and be destabilizing, but only when they do not provoke the neighbors into destabilizing the country. That is, there has to be a relative consensus about the status of Afghanistan in the international system, as there was in the late 19th century, as there was during the Cold War, and as there has not been since the 1980s. So that is why Russia and Iran, for instance, have shifted their policy from totally denouncing the Taliban and saying it's the same as Al-Qaeda to calling for their inclusion, and at least in the case of Iran, providing some military assistance. I'm not convinced about Russia, but I no longer have my security clearance, so who knows. And certainly, Russia is providing them with some political support at the very least.
You think?
Now, the way that the economic growth has manifested itself, well, one other thing. This is something that does not get enough attention. I realize I should have put a map up here because not everybody looks at this part of the map all the time like I do. Afghanistan is landlocked. An offshore power, that is someone who does, a country that does not border on Afghanistan, cannot get to Afghanistan without the consent of either Pakistan, Iran, or Russia. There's no other way. They're looking for other options, but there aren't any ways. That's why we're stuck with Pakistan. Right? We've turned to Russia a little bit. People here were very involved in that. Indeed, you were very involved in that, the party. In the Northern Distribution Network in 2011, when Pakistan closed the border to us. But that's not possible now. So even to have this long-term U.S. military presence We cannot have a long-term military presence in Afghanistan in order to contain Russia, isolate Iran, push pressure it, and put severe pressure on Pakistan. Because then we won't be able to get there. So that's why the option of succeeding by pressuring Pakistan, when there's nothing about Russia and Iran, won't work. Now, what can we do? Well, there's a huge number of things going on that we have not taken into account in our Afghanistan policy. First, which is that the region around Afghanistan was basically economically worthless in 2001 and the 1980s. And now it's some of the most valuable real estate on earth because of the growth of these economies. So China is now building what it calls the Belt and Road Initiative, which is a two-part major program, the Silk Road Economic Belt for Central Asia, the Maritime Silk Road around the Indian Ocean, and the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor through Pakistan, connecting them, which is aimed at addressing the decrease in Chinese economic growth rate, which is the main legitimating factor in China for the government, by opening up the central and western regions of China through roads, railroads, pipelines, fiber optic cables, and other things. When I was in Moscow in December, the head of the Afghanistan unit at the Oriental Studies Institute said to me that the Belt and Road Initiative is the largest project in the history of the world. I'm not sure how you compare it to the Great Wall of China or the Pyramids in Egypt. But that's what he said. But it's a large project. And Afghanistan is at the heart of it. And China believes, of course it's related also to the instability in Xinjiang, the Uyghur separatist movement. They believe that they will not really succeed in getting the investment they need for that, making the investment, make it pay off, and so on, unless there's security in the region. That is why China became involved in the search for peace in Afghanistan, and why I participated with the United States, Pakistan, the Afghan government, in an abortive attempt to negotiate with the Taliban. That's why, although it's not very visible, they have been putting gradual pressure on Pakistan to do various things. And in fact, the Azam campaign against the anti-Pakistan terrorists, they didn't do one against the anti-Afghan or anti-Indian one, but that one at least was undertaken after the Chief of Army Staff came back from Beijing. Now, that is something that could be decisive for the future of Afghanistan in the sense that, as I said, Afghanistan is a landlocked country. It cannot develop its economy so that it can support a state unless it is connected to the outside world. This provides one means for Afghanistan to do that. And it is in our interest to support it, except the problem with it is, one, India objects to it because the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor passes through northern Pakistan, which India claims as part of Kashmir. And second, Pakistan will not allow transit from Afghanistan to India, which undermines a lot of the value that Afghanistan would get out of joining such a scheme. Nonetheless, there are China-India high-level talks going on about this. They recently had a strategic dialogue, and the Indian Foreign Secretary, when he came back from it, said he reiterated the same objections, but he was somewhat more, but he was more positive. He said, we're looking for solutions. However, in response to that, India hasn't just been waiting. India and Iran, together with Afghanistan, have sponsored another connectivity project, which is rebuilding the port of Chabahar, which is an Iranian port which is not inside the Persian Gulf, it is outside the Persian Gulf. In fact, it is very close, about 100 kilometers, to the Pakistani port of Gwadar, which is part of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, a key part of it. And they have, in addition to building that port, building its capacity, they have also built road and rail connections up to the Afghan border, and then India, inside Afghanistan, up to the ring road, so it's connected with the Afghan transport network, and then also connected to the Iranian road and railroad networks through Mashhad, also connect up to Central Asia and from there to Russia and beyond.